Hello, guitar players around the world. My name is Henning Pauli, and I'm presenting something utterly unique to you. That's my opinion. And you can argue with me in the comments below. Please do so. Also, like and subscribe as one does on YouTube if you like the content. I'm looking at the MyTrem. I don't think it's the greatest name. Company doesn't necessarily yet have the greatest publicity when it comes to website and all that, which I told them. I do think they have a product that is going to change guitar as it is. That's a big statement. That's a huge statement, okay? We're talking about this tremolo right here. Or vibrato, technically. I know it's not a tremolo. Tremolo is the modulation of volume. Vibrato is the modulation of pitch. But we call it a trem. It's not my vibe, it's MyTrem. It's just common, wrong terminology. Why is this going to change guitar as we know it? Because this is such a complicated video, holy crap. When you tremolo, whether it is with a standard Strat trem or with a Floyd or whatever, the pitch change is not proportional for all the strings. So, as you can see in this graph right here, the high E string, when you bend down a half step, will go down a half step. But the other strings will go down in completely different intervals. So you cannot do a D bar chord and bend it down as is a whole step and get a C bar chord. Just doesn't happen. That's how it's been for the longest time. This will do it proportionally. Each string will have its own bendiness. Okay, that's already pretty impressive. I mean, let me show you. It's so weird because we know what a guitar feels like. It is so weird to do this because it actually feels like you're whammying. A digital pitch will, of course, do it perfectly. And before now, you could only do this with a whammy pedal or some kind of pitchfork or whatever digital solution. Okay, so that is already utterly cool. And I can't think of another system that can do that. Somebody said maybe the Steinberg or whatever, but that's super cool. But what if you could only vibrate one string? What if you could only pitch change two strings? What if you could bend down but a string goes up? What if you could, when you bend up, only bend up certain strings? Now this MyTrem is set up exactly like that. Check this out. E string, nothing happens. A string, nothing happens. Top E string. So the biggest problem with the top E string is when you're bending up and it's going to go ping and it's going to go bye-bye and break. Not with this because it's literally not bending up. What is bending up is D, G, and B. And again, perfectly proportional. So we're doing this. But down, everything bends. Top E string doesn't do anything. So imagine you're in Nashville, imagine you do country stuff. You want a B bender, you want a G bender, you want to do pedal steely kind of stuff. This changes the way that you play this instrument. It changes the way that you're approaching chords. It changes the way that you're approaching parts because you're learning new parts You're developing new parts that you can only do with this. Now, the setup that I just showed you, a whole step down for everything, and a whole step up only for D, G, and B, is one of a myriad of things you can do. You could, again, only do a G bender when you're bending down. It goes up. You could change a major chord into a minor chord, right? How cool is it? I can do a power chord on the E string, and you're doing E and A will not change, but the D string will. So you can do this is really, really, really cool. Now, before we go into how this works and all the details, however I'm going to present this to you, I have no idea. This is so, it is guitar altering. We always say the guitar doesn't develop, it doesn't evolve. Guitar's been the same since, the Strat came around, or the Tele came around technically. But this is turning it into Guitar Plus. It enhances what you can do with the guitar and essentially turns it into a Guitar Plus pedal steel, or however you want to call that. Now, for the metal guys, can you do the dive bombs? Yes, you're just going to set it up to go super flabby, a fifth or whatever. But I don't think it is necessarily for the guy that's looking for an alternative for a Floyd, because it can do so much more. Just going, wow. Can it do that? Yes. Is that the general idea of getting this? No. Now let me show you what I just showed you in comparison to this guitar with the standard trem. Now, this is the same guitar. This is a Harley Benton ST Modern Plus with the Barbage trem. Now, this is a Barbage trem, and that is a very, very good tremolo. In this case, it's floating, and it can go plus and minus around the center point. It's $150 or whatever. It's a very good trem. That's standard on this guitar. This was what was on this guitar, and they replaced it with the MyTrem. So it is a replacement part. You can also, of course, get it as a new installation, and there's these two different versions. There's the builder part where you just, when you build a guitar, you use that, or the replacement. By the way, something I want to point out, which I think is pretty damn cool. It's a nice guitar, the Harley Benton ST Modern Plus. And this is the one, this is the one from the very first batch that I got to review. And in the review, I pointed out, you know what? I like it, but it should have staggered tuners. And as you can see on this one, maybe, see, no staggered tuners. Now, this one's clearly from a later batch where Harley Benton went, yeah, Henning's got a good point, because it has the Harley Benton machine heads on it, but look at it. If you can see that, maybe, it now has staggered tuners. They didn't even tell me that, but they definitely listened. So here's a couple of minutes of back and forth between the two different guitars, and you can hear the difference. one setup. Now, they're going to be at Guitar Summit this week. If you see this now, then you should go to Guitar Summit and look at this and play it in real life. They're bringing 9 different guitars and 9 different setups. So no, you're not going to go cluck, cluck, and it's going to be a different setup. You're going to set it up the way that you are going to want your MyTrem to work. And then a change in what it does might require a string change. It might be between 5 and 10 minutes. Now, I haven't done this. The manual is 28 pages long, and I did read it. I will attempt this in a bit and do one different setup and see if I can even do that. But I'm a bit scared of that. So let me show you how they do this. This is utterly crazy. It is actually a fixed bridge. This bit right here is fixed. It does not move. See, if I bend this down, nothing moves. If I bend it up, nothing moves. And then as you can maybe see now, the bend down is a part that moves. Actually, it is a part that moves just traditionally with the trem block, which in this case is very thin. It doesn't need mass because the strings are being pushed onto the top of the guitar and have beautiful connection with the instrument and the masses here. So this is fixed. Down is one bit, and up, as you can see, is a completely different mechanism that doesn't move the down mechanism. So if I bend this up, nothing moves down there. So there's an up and a down mechanism which are separate. And the cool thing is this is fixed, meaning when I'm leaning on it, I'm not changing the pitch. It also means drop D, even though I can go up and down, technically floating, not gonna be an issue. It is an utterly ingenious feat of engineering. So you might be able to see that there are only 3 strings in this bit, D, G, and B. The strings that also bend down, these bend up and down. The strings that only bend down are actually hooked up at the bottom. So you can see E, A, and the high E are traditionally going through the trem block. And further, what you can see here is a stopper, right? So when I bend up, it stops, but it's a soft rubber, so I can go a little bit past the stop point. So you can say the stop point is at a whole step. You could, of course, adjust that here and make it a different pitch if you wanted that, but it's not going to break the high E string because the high E string doesn't bend. There are different materials for the stoppers in the kit if you wanted that to be harder or not. And the same thing is actually for the down bend. There's a stopper that stops at a whole step. You can adjust that. And again, you can go a little bit further and you can also put different kind of hardnesses on there. So there are rollers here that the strings go over, either coming from below. You can see right there, these come from below, or from behind. If they come from below, they go over the roller that's in the back here. Can you see the little roller there? They go over them either from the top or from the bottom. So these go from the bottom. Okay, let me show you a couple of graphics because it might make a lot more sense. So they can be hooked up to go up and down. They can be hooked up to go only down. And so then they're coming from the bottom. They can be hooked up to go up when you bend down, which is still completely crazy. And they can actually be hooked up through the bridge over here to not do anything when you do something. That's completely crazy. Okay, let's look at what it comes with. This is the back plate and some strings that he sent to me so that I can do some stuff. There's a file when you're installing it. Of course, I didn't install it, so I don't need this. He sent me a different trem arm, which sticks out further. It's too much for me. There's a pick. And here are examples of the 2 different install base plates. You only get one of those depending on what you want. This is the one that you use when you're doing a retrofit. There's actually a nice rubber thing right there, and you actually attach it in the cavity from that side. And this is the one that's super, super light. This is a bit heavier. This is super, super light. This is the one that you would use when you're building a guitar with the Maytrem, that's the company, but with the MyTrem. Then you get this nice little case, and there's a certificate, there are stickers, there are different hardnesses of springs, and there's instructions which ones to use. Cloth scissors, there is anti-friction oil that you're supposed to use on the rollers. There is a screwdriver. That's a nice quality tool right there. There's a tiny little hex screwdriver. There's another screwdriver here. There are some hex wrenches. There's a magnet which you can attach to the back of your tuning pegs, forks, mechanic on the top of the headstocks to have these stick to your headstock in case you need them. We have more of the little screws that go into shit there. This thing apparently is, if you don't have enough string tension, depending on your setup, you need to put that somewhere. And here are different kind of stoppers with different hardnesses, depending on how far you want to wiggle past the stop point or not. That's thinking of everything. On the other hand, they should, because it's not a cheap system. I think this is around $600. Now there's the MyTrem and the Tremi. They're about the same price. The Tremi doesn't have the upbend part, meaning it looks a lot more like a standard Strat Trem, and you can go only down, but still have all the benefits of it. And if you want the up part as well, you have this other bit back here, but price-wise, it's about the same. You have to, if you want to set it up the way that you want to set it up, really go step by step, and then tune, and then, make sure intonation is right. But I think the manual is written well, so you should be able to get what you want. If you're a Nashville guy, you want a G and B bender and that's all you want, do it. If you want to do dive bombs on certain strings but not on others, do it. It's all possible. Let me show you a couple of their videos, because I can't do all different setups, a couple of their videos to get you an idea of what's possible. So he sent me a very nice video showing the different ways of getting the strings hooked up. And I have to say, this is ingenious. And when people tell me you've got this new trem, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that kind of video. So what's going to be new about it? I was so wrong. I was so wrong. This is brilliant. Now, because it doesn't really have a float around the center position, doing the typical, very nice, smooth vibrato isn't really happening, because that would mean you go up and down around the center position. But because it's two different mechanisms, you would have to go. Could you? Yeah. also, the hardness of how the trem behaves changed depending on how far you want the strings to bend and how many strings are bending. But you could actually completely choose not to do all strings. Technically, if you want that effect, you don't have to do the low strings. It's enough when you do the middle strings. So really, to get that whittle, 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 maybe you only do it in the down portion. It's really like a whammy. It's so crazy. Right now, I can't do a dive bomb because I'm set up for a whole step. Well, if you want to do dive bombs, set it up. You change it the way that you want to use it. Let me go and try to set it up differently, and I'll see you in I don't know how many hours.
Battle lines are drawn in blood. No time to believe. Be brave and face that fall. You will need to succeed. Heart is pounding, arms are sounding. One more time, here we go. Men are screaming, drums are beating. One last time, over we go. Here now, sins will be forgotten. I will answer the call. I will fight for it all. Oh no, many will fall. I will be standing tall. Are you standing tall, Seattle? No time to think of the lost. One time, then it's gone. Brothers fall, one by one. Here we stand, man to man. Lungs on fire.
Took about 21 minutes, actually. That's what the camera said. I went for a mod or change that didn't require new strings, really. But I thought I, experience the system. So what I did is I changed the B string from being able to go up and down to only be able to go up when I bend down. That's crazy. For that, I unhooked it in the back and hooked it under the block right there. So took it out, hooked it in there. And now the B string will go up a half step when I bend down. That's pretty much crazy. The G string will go down the normal whole tone that it did before, meaning if I do this, that will go up, that will go down, and this third will go and be a fifth. Is that actually possible? I think I tuned it correct. It's a little bit tricky because you have to turn the screw a little bit. All the tools are, by the way, brilliant. They're all there, everything that you need. I tightened the trem arm a bit, which is now, need to tighten it a bit more. It's not coming out that easily anymore. So you have to change the tuning, but then of course the tuning of the open string changes. And then you tune it, you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's a little bit of a, game, but you really only do that once for the setup that you want. Could probably get that in tune a bit more. It also says once you change your setup, you have to play it a bit for the system to kind of fall into place and then maybe do little adjustments. So let me check. That's a little bit too low there. So I probably want to go back up here a bit, which means now. That's probably better. I have a little bit of play because I'm using the soft bumper. If I use the harder bumper, I could actually install it maybe more precisely, but I want a little bit of wiggle room. Get it? What's that like with drive? Another thing I did is be able to actually do more dive bombs, not go down a whole step, but actually go down, I don't know, a fifth or something. So I could do that, so I actually end up at a fifth between the A, which is now going to be a G, and the E, which is now going to be a C, which would be kind of cool. Yeah, I didn't really tune that correctly, but I mean, you can absolutely do the dive bomb. So for Eddie's stuff, the D string isn't correct, so let's figure that out, okay? I fiddled around with all the strings, that was the problem. The most you can do up bends is a whole step, by the way. Ah, here we go. Damn, that is cool! Of course, because you're not pulling anything forward, you can also do this typical bends without having to bend the other string like you would have to do on a Floyd. The MyTrem changes the way you think about guitar. And it also puts tremoloing or pitch bending with the wiggle sticking, das wiggle sticking, as my friend Ryan Burke would say. It makes it your own expression of the instrument. The way that you want the wiggle sticking to work is your choice. So the way that your guitar functions isn't all of a sudden how everyone else's guitar functions. The way your guitar functions is your choice, your expression of the instrument. I honestly believe that this makes the guitar an evolved instrument. No levers for B and G benders and no weird benders that you pull here, it goes with the thing through the guitar. This can be changed. I mean, yeah, you need about half an hour to an hour, depending on what you're doing, to completely change the setup or have it on different guitars in the studio to do different things. But you'll likely have it do one thing you want it to do, and that's the way it's set up. Mine right now does dive bombs, but does the cool and when you go up, E string still doesn't do anything. Now the B string also doesn't do anything, right? This is an amazing feat of engineering. There's a learning curve. You want to read the manual. You want to find out how to set it up, or bring it to your luthier, tell him what you want, have him do it, and he sets it up the way that you want to play your guitar. At first I was like, oh, that's a lot of chunk back there, but it actually isn't. Compared to a Floyd, it really isn't. Well built, everything that comes with it makes sense. There's good support with manual. I think a couple of videos, really tutorials, might be a good idea for them. But this is just absolutely mind-blowing. And I would say the new evolution for the instrument in certain styles. If you are interested in it, go to, obviously, their website, link below, but also on the weekend, in a few days, in Mannheim at Guitar Summit, they have a booth with 9 guitars set up in different setups. Check it out. Mind blown, really well done. Maytrem, that's the company. The naming doesn't, okay. But the product, fuck yeah. Links below and animals at the end.